Okay, thank you very much for coming. I know some of you, I don't know all of you. We'll go ahead and get to it. It's going to be a little interesting, probably not a typical seminar. That's okay. It should be fun. Let's see, background on what this is about. So I'm an associate professor in the Department of Statistics, and I'm developing a class with help from some colleagues of mine to teach through liberal arts, be a different, not a statistics class. And the purpose of it is to do a variety of things, but certainly try to foster diversity on campus. There's interest from the university, across the nation in fostering inclusivity and acceptance of people who aren't like us. And let's see, so this seminar is reflecting the curriculum that I'm developing right now with my colleagues. There will be a special topics class next fall that we'll teach, and it'll probably be an undergraduate class, but I might also cross-list it as a graduate class. So the big idea, let's see, we see constant examples every day of people doing terrible things to other people, to themselves, to other things, often in the name of unscientific, untested, irrational beliefs that they strongly hold. We see powerful individuals willing to lie and cheat, whatever it takes, in order to secure more power. There is lots and lots of anger and violence and bias and distrust and us versus them in the world today, and it seems like it's getting closer and closer to our backyard every day. My intention with this seminar and with the class and with everything that this turns into, hopefully, is to challenge you to think critically about the things that you believe. Think critically about the things you choose to believe and maybe not to believe. To better understand the true nature of things, that we are not the center of the universe, that we are a speck on a dot, on a dot, on a dot, on a dot, will soon be gone and forgotten, those types of cheerful things. And to seriously consider, again, we see examples of people willing to think really hard and even kill themselves in order to make a point about something they believe. So what would happen if young, smart people like you had more loving things in mind? What could you do with your life that would impact for good? It won't happen if you don't think it can happen, and it won't happen if you don't plan to use your life, choose your career in such a way that it fosters that kind of thing, as opposed to just getting lots of money and lots of possessions. Okay, so that's my opening spiel. What I'd like to do next is have you complete some online assessments. Let me go down here. Let me do introductions first. So we have with us Dr. Daria Ackelman. She's in the Department of Statistics also, and she's helping with assessments that you're going to do. We're going to ask you to answer some questions about your attitudes toward beliefs. I'm confident in my worldview. I understand the differences in different cultures, those types of questions. We'd like you to do that before and then after. Should take about 10 minutes each time. Okay? So I'm going to turn it over to Daria in just a moment. We also have with us Lisa Toffener, who is going to lead you in something that you may find uncomfortable, which is 5 minutes of guided breathing meditation. Okay? Anybody ever tried meditation of some kind? Okay. It's not complicated. She'll tell us all about it. She's an expert teacher. It's not complicated, but it's deceptively, tricky and kind of hard to, maybe hard to do. The purpose of doing that, by the way, is not to hypnotize you or put you to sleep or anything, but the value of meditation, mindfulness, is that it's a powerful mechanism for turning everything off. All the thoughts, the worries about tomorrow, the anxieties and everything, the shame and whatever it is about the past. Meditation brings you right here. And we're going to be talking about stuff that I think is worth being right here for. Okay. All right. So my hope is that you are at least nominally present here now and ready to think with us. So let's start thinking. What do we know? How do we know it? And how do we go about learning things in the first place? I wanted to start out with just big picture on the grand scheme of things. What do we know about the universe and our role in it? It is an enormous, ancient, and mysterious universe. It's bigger than we can fathom in our minds. It's expanding. It's accelerating. It's composed of these crazy things called dark matter and dark energy that we don't understand. We also know that humanity and everything we see as life evolved and continues to evolve. And as a statistician, particularly notice that uncertainty is everywhere. From the quantum level, the sense that an atom, for example, can occupy two states at the same time. It's like every single event, a bird going across the sky, and the smell of flowers in the air, and the sound of a car going across the street, all those things are a coming together of an infinite number of basically continuously distributed things. Quantum systems that it is unfathomably complicated to be able, you can't explain how one thing happens because it is the intersection of uncountably many random, continuously distributed events. Uncertainty is everywhere. There's a lot we don't know, and at the very tiny levels, there's a lot we can't know. How do we go about learning things like that have big implications about what we think about ourselves, our importance in this life, what our role in this life is, what our obligations to other people and other things are? We as people are good at pattern recognition. From our earliest days as pre-humans, the ability to recognize every time, or the last time I saw a rough rustling in the bushes, my uncle got eaten by a bear, to next time I see that, I'm going to run. We're good at pattern recognition, which is often a blessing, but sometimes a curse as well, because we as humans, the way our brains work, like to connect dots, sometimes when they don't belong connected. We certainly learn by rational discourse. If something follows a logical system, then it is acceptable. If something does not follow a logical system or is otherwise not a valid argument, it doesn't belong on the table of things we're trying to learn from. Scientific inquiry is the way that we go about systematically testing and investigating and learning about patterns that apply generally in the world. And scientific inquiry is subject to the important kind of grueling process of peer review. So we often hear on CNN and other places the latest research that suggests if you eat coffee beans, you know, it will make your hair grow back or something. And it's tricky because those are published studies, and they may even have been peer-reviewed studies, but there's a whole discipline to properly understanding science, consuming science, and the average American is very bad at it. The average scientific journalist is very bad at it. So this speaks to, I think, the role that experts should play in helping us to understand things. I couldn't tell you how a car works, but I believe that it works because I trust science and I trust the methods that have been used to make it work. Reproducibility is also important. If the coffee beans grow your hair back, then we should be able to repeat that study many times, whereas it might have been 10 people and subject to all kinds of biases. Occam's razor is a statement that says, all other things being equal, if we're trying to choose between explanations of a phenomenon, choose the explanation that requires the fewest assumptions. We'll talk a little bit about religion tonight, and there is a tension between what scientific information and learning has shown us and what people believe in today's culture all around the world, including our backyard. And an argument that says you can't rule out there being a God or something that created all this evolution that you see. You can't rule it out. This Occam's razor kind of thing argues against that. This, what we know, is based on the science. There's not a sensible, rational reason to put on top of that additional assumptions and stuff. So Occam's razor, and then impediments to learning. What puts us behind in the learning process? One thing is unfalsifiable claims. That is the idea that I claim that when Halley's Comet comes by, it's doing it because it wanted to say hello to me this year. That's what it's doing. Prove me wrong. You can't. Unfalsifiable claims are unworthy of our time claims. When people are unwilling to question or to be questioned or to adapt to new data, to new learning, that is a problem, and it's rampant today. Another kind of paradoxical impediment to learning is that our own experiences and memories are not as reliable as we think they are. Neuroscience tells us that when we experience something, that experience is a construction in the sense that it is a function of everything we've experienced in our life, all the pressures, all the cultural upbringing, the genetics, the details of this particular interaction go together to put in your memory bank something that science says is not a very accurate representation of what actually happened. So if that's the case about our experiences, that's going to translate to our memories and be compounded. Every time we call to mind something that happened, there's the emotions and everything that color what we remember. Two people can have a very different experience of the exact same event. All right, let me keep going here. The intention here is to have said, we know some things using rational, naturalistic, scientific arguments. We know some important things. That leaves off a lot of things that we don't know about, where we come from, what happens after we die, what's our purpose, that type of thing. But let me say something about where that rational set of facts lands us, arguably, with respect to each other and everything else. There is a great sense in which you and I are very insignificant in the grand scheme of things. The universe is thought to be 14 billion years old. You and I, Homo sapiens, have not been around since the last 0.001% of that history. We are one of billions on a planet. This planet is one of billions of other planets among billions of solar systems in an enormous universe. So there's a sense in which you and I are dots on a dot on a dot on a dot on a dot. We are also not going to last very long. Every single one of us is going to die, probably going to be forgotten soon after. There's also scientific research that says what your parents told you when you were growing up. Money won't make you happy. Possessions won't make you happy. All the things that basically you read online and in the commercials on TV trying to sell to you, those things won't make you happy or fulfilled. And there is research, for example, that shows there's no correlation. There is a correlation between money and happiness when people are below the poverty line. It's hard to be happy when you're hungry. But above the poverty line, there's a very low correlation, and above like $75,000 a year or something like that, there's zero correlation. So in terms of happiness outcomes, you and I have nothing over or under a millionaire. And then the idea that rationally understanding the nature of the universe. You and I are just a bunch of atoms that are oriented in a particular way at this particular moment. Think about, for example, a girl, and she's about to eat an apple. So the girl, she's a bunch of atoms organized in a particular way at this particular time. Her brain and her cells are of a sufficiently sophisticated sort that she's able to move around, she's sentient, and she's able to eat the apple. The apple, meanwhile, is made up of the same stuff, atoms, same material that makes everything else up, organized in a particular way at this particular moment. As she takes a bite of the apple, in her mouth she's chewing it up, would you say that that stuff in her mouth is the apple or is it her? Most people say it's the apple. But then she swallows it and it goes into her stomach. And it starts getting churned up by all the bacteria and acids and everything in there. Now, as it goes off into the bloodstream to feed the body and turn into other things, is it the apple or is it the girl? And then in the morning when she goes to the bathroom, is that the apple or is that the girl? The idea there that I'm trying to get across is there's no difference between any other thing in the universe, whether it's a tree or you or a banana. You're going to be gone and your material will turn into something else. So as you look at another person who maybe doesn't look like you or who does things that you don't approve of because of your beliefs, every living thing wants to live, wants to be safe, wants to have its basic needs met. Every person certainly wants to be happy and live not in fear. So imagine just a couple of things here. Imagine a boy who was raised as fill in the blank. And I'll fill in the blank from my background. I was raised in a Christian household, and that was Christian with all caps. Fundamentalist. This is it. This is the answer. And it's a darn shame about everybody else who grew up in different cultures because they didn't get this answer. So imagine that you're raised that way. You respect your parents. You see that they believe in what they're doing. They're doing the best they can. And they want good things for you. And then you meet somebody else who was raised in a different part of the world with loving parents who wanted the best for their kids, who passed on beliefs from their culture. What's challenging today is that so many cultures are coming together. If I come from a culture that says my way's right, and you come from a culture that says your way's right, there's no real answer except to say, you believe what you want, I'll believe what I want. But that's not what people believe right now. If you poll people in the U.S., 40% believe the Bible is the inspired word of God, that Jesus is going to come back. Billions in the world believe other religions. And when we look at the fine print of these religions, if I sign my name to this religion, there's some horrific things in there. Pick any religion. What I want to say also here is if you did come from a background such as this, it can cause a lot of pressure, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain. It did for me. When I walked away, it was extremely hard on my family. And so I can see how cultural pressures really will affect how people act. It can affect the jobs you choose. It can affect the friends you take. It can affect whether you decide to blow yourself up. So suppose we step aside from beliefs. Beliefs being things that I assert that I can't prove and you can't falsify. Suppose we don't have belief. One argument would be, well, what's the point of living? If there's no God, if there's no heaven, if there's no ultimate accounting at the end of time, what's the point? Albert Camus was an existential writer, and he famously said there is but one truly serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. If there's nothing, what's the point? So absurdity is the idea that there's no happy ending to this life that we know of. We evolved from gook, and our planet is not going to last forever. Our sun's not going to last forever. We're probably not going to last forever. In a few 100,000 years, we'll be different looking creatures altogether. We don't last very long. Soon we're gone and nobody remembers us. So what's the point of anything? There's a myth of Sisyphus that's an interesting thought exercise. Sisyphus was a Greek character who was condemned to, for all eternity, take this enormous boulder and push it up this mountain. Push it up the mountain, work with all of his might, and once he got it to the top, inevitably it would topple over and roll down to the bottom of the other side. And he was condemned, cursed, to go over and do it one more time. And so questions that come up there, what would you do if you were Sisyphus? And is it not the case that you are a Sisyphus in a way? If everything we're doing is going to go to dirt anyway, we don't take anything with us, what's the point? But there is a way of thinking about things that is optimistic in the face of absurdity. One way that Sisyphus deals with his predicament, rather than railing at the heavens and saying this isn't fair, what he can do is put himself 100% into his task. Here I am with my rock. I know this crevice and that crevice. I've been doing this for a while. I like the feeling of my muscles tensing as I push up. The sweat is refreshing. When I get to the top, it's so satisfying to have done it. Sure, it goes down, but it sounds fabulous and rumbles the ground when it does it. I would live this life for eternity. Life is absurd, I think it's fair to say, even though many of us don't agree with it, I think. If it is absurd, what this Sisyphus exercise asks is, what are you going to do about it? Friedrich Nietzsche had a quote that I think is wonderful. However you may be your own source of experience. Throw off your discontent about your nature. Forgive yourself your own self. You have it in your power to merge everything you have lived through, false starts, errors, delusions, passions, your loves and your hopes, into your goal with nothing left over. What I take from that is he's got in mind the Sisyphus who's all in for his eternal task. He takes his experiences, his moment, his opportunity to live and interact with the world, and he makes it into his goal. If that's the goal, then he's satisfied, no matter what his lot in life. From this perspective, a rational, naturalistic, scientifically informed perspective, life is absurd. And there is no magic formula that guides us and tells us what to do, what we should be, and what we shouldn't do. There just isn't. There's many that are put forward, but yours is no better than mine. I can't prove mine, you can't disprove mine, and back and forth. There is no rule book for us. And there is no bandwagon for us to jump onto that's going to solve all our problems. So you and I have a great responsibility to do with our lives something purposeful, something that we choose to do. The mindfulness idea I mentioned that for me it stems from wanting to be able to control my thoughts. And if you've ever experienced anxiety, depression, that type of thing, you know that you often can be thinking about things that happened previously or worrying about things that are going to happen. And whether it happens for you or not, trust me, there are many people on this campus who are affected by that type of thing. And it could be debilitating, terrifying, and it can make you want to end it. But nothing ever really happened in the past. It happened in a particular moment. It was in the past, but when it actually happened, it was right there. The people who were interacting were right there at that moment. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in some present moment. The idea is there's no energy, there's nothing for us to interact with in the past or the future. Our life, our entire experience is composed of an infinite stringing together of moments. And in every moment, there's no excuses. It's up to you to decide how to behave, what to do, what to pursue. I would like to encourage you to think in terms of living authentically, living passionately. Authenticity would be being true to you, your own personality, your character, your spirit, your abilities, your disabilities, being true to that, as opposed to a herd mentality of doing what most people do. That's the alternative of authenticity, which in existential circles gets called bad faith. Adopting false values and thereby disowning your personal freedom. Okay. So this is my last major slide. I would like to encourage you to think about your life and its quality. I think that if we were serious and honest with ourselves, every single one of us want to live a quality life. What does quality mean? I'll say something about it in a second, but it's one of those things I think that you know it if you see it. When you do a task or a job, you know what it means to really put yourself into it, as opposed to just going through the motions. Having a conversation with somebody, for example, it's easy to have a surface level conversation. How you doing? Oh, that's great. Yeah, good weekend? Okay. As opposed to what we might call a quality conversation, face to face, looking you in the eye, tell me how you're doing, that type of thing. So, I want to talk about quality. Has anybody ever read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? I know you guys have. It's a good book, and it had a couple of quotes. It has a lot about this idea of quality, which at first annoyed me because I thought he was just rambling about this thing, quality, that I never even thought about, but it ends up being kind of powerful in the end, I thought. So he talks about quality as the ultimate good, what we should strive for. If you want satisfaction and you want fulfillment, if you want to live to your potential, seek quality things to do. All right, here's a couple of quotes. What I mean, and everybody else means, by the word quality cannot be broken down into subjects and predicates. This is not because quality is so mysterious, but because quality is so simple, immediate, and direct. He had qualms with Socrates, or Aristotle, and what he perceived as Aristotle's demand for parsing every last thing down to its essence, infinitely defining things. And he kind of blamed him for what he viewed with a lot of problems with society. So that, quote one, quote two, my personal feeling is that this is how any further improvement of the world will be done, by individuals making quality decisions, and that's all. So that could be you. You could start a company that does something awesome and still make money and make a living. You could be a teacher and influence young people. You could be an artist. You could be anything. The existential Nietzsche idea is whatever it is that is you, be it, and be it passionately, and that will be your best self. You will be satisfied, you will be fulfilled, you will be happy to the extent as possible. Let me say something about love. Love could mean many different things depending on which dictionary we look in. The flavor of love that I am speaking about here is a desire for and a willingness to contribute to good things. And that could be for me, and that could be also for others. As students, don't forget to love yourself. When you're anxious, when you're depressed, when it looks horrible, empathize with yourself. Love can be for all things, certainly for self. From a rational perspective, you're no different from me. We're atoms. Same thing as that frog, same thing as the tree. Translates to love for others. If I want good things for myself, I'm reliant on other people. We are like a superorganism, humans, and a superorganism on an even higher level, Earth. So if I am no different from you, I'm susceptible to all the same dangers and hazards. If we are a superorganism and we are reliant on each other, then good things for you will be good things for me. Ways to achieve quality is what I'm trying to talk about. Love is one ingredient, I argue. Passion is another. So there is a science of happiness. There's been some studies into get us a bunch of people who are happy and a bunch of people who are not happy, and let's compare and see what kind of associations we find. And common factors are savor your experiences. That goes back to the mindfulness idea as well. If you're eating, can't wait for the next bite, or can't wait to get out the door to catch the bus or whatever, you're missing that part of your life, that experience. Your mind is at work or at school, but you can't do anything at work right now because you're right here. So you just missed part of life, and that's all you have, is a series of moments in life. Be thankful for what you have. All of us have many things to be thankful for. Aspire, this is where I point to passion. Aspire to noble goals. Challenge yourself. What are you going to do with your life? If people who are driven toward a goal are generally happier. So pursue your noble goals. Be giving of your time and resources, and be empathetic with others and yourself. Nietzsche again said, without passions, you have no experience whatsoever. And then finally, as you're leaving, I've got these little bracelets that you can pick up. They say, no self. That's a Buddhist thing, I think, originally. I'm not trying to preach Buddhism. The idea of no self. There are elements of the universe that are subject to like quantum uncertainty, like I was saying earlier. You can't simultaneously know the position and the momentum of a particle, for example. As soon as you identify it and look at it, you lost something about it. It's the same kind of thing with us. Our lives are a series, an infinite series of instantaneous moments in which we get to make decisions. And what happened before, or what's going to happen later, really doesn't have any impact on this moment right now. Another Nietzsche quote, to become what one is, one must not have the faintest notion of what one is. We are not a personality that we're crafting for others to look at and admire. We're not a CV that people, can admire again. We're not anything. You're living your own life, I'm living my own life. It does not matter to me what, well, it probably does matter, but it should not matter to me what you think about me. So in a sense, I didn't explain that perfectly, but in a sense, I think it's a healthy attitude to think in terms of there is no me. There's no Alan. Sure, I've done things in the past, and there's patterns to what I've done, but ultimately right now, this is me, and I get to choose what to do. Same thing with you. Another bit of wisdom here, it does not matter what others think about you. One of my mentors is fond of saying, life's not a popularity contest. But then he would quickly say it's not an unpopularity contest either. All right, so big idea for the whole rational learning course is, I think this is like the thesis. Let me just state it. I think each of us are interested in living lives well, living a quality life, making something of ourselves and positively impacting the world. So here's a proposal to think about. I claim that a rational, reasonable, and research-backed proposal can be made that the self is optimized by mindfully choosing how to respond in the moment. That's conditional on the setting, what's going on, and one's abilities and disabilities. With the intention, the goal, how I choose among the myriad things I could do in this moment, my intention is maximizing the quality of that moment. And hopefully, thinking long term, contributing substantially to the cumulative lifetime quality for me and for all. And the claim that this outcome follows naturally when we think rationally and we are motivated by love, desire for and willingness to contribute to good things for you and for all. Okay, so that's it for that seminar. I'm going to give a couple more. The next one this semester is going to talk about quality more. We see today Kardashians, Donald Trump, all these different characters in the media that are larger-than-life characters with crazy personalities, and they do wild things, and they get all the clicks online. That's what our society fosters. That's what makes you important. That's what makes you popular. That's what makes you powerful. What I would like to argue for and think about with you is forget about your Facebook page, your Twitter, trying to start a blog so you get lots of followers or something. Focus on less about your character, what sets you apart, that kind of thing, and more on the quality of what you're doing. And then the final seminar will be tips and techniques for maximizing quality. In the class, what we're going to do is have a semester-long project, and the purpose of the project is to come up with an actual event that we will do as a class. The goal is simply to act optimally out of love. That's it. High quality, action, motivated by love. What could that be? It could be anything. It could be a YouTube video that we make about, different cultures on campus. Could be going around to schools, 3 or 4 schools in the local area to talk to school children about evolution or something. I don't know. But getting the students, and it'll be part of the graded experience, to come up with real-world things. Instead of blowing ourselves up to show how much we're dissatisfied with this world, or lying and cheating so we can get ours, what would happen if you lived your life with a long-range goal of doing positive things, high-quality things? Consider doing them through love. Okay, any questions? I did all the talking. I've never given this kind of talk before, so it's a little out of my comfort zone. I really appreciate you coming. And if you would, please, go ahead and let's do those assessments one more time, please. I have some references at the end. I will share my slides with everybody. I have all your email addresses. So there's some reading on the end. When you're done, please take a little bracelet for fun.